Hi everyone, it's me, Anna, and it's been such a long time since I've talked to you about my reads. So today I want to tell you about my recent reads for January and February. And the only book I read in January was The Stand by Stephen King. It was the only book I managed to read in January because first of all, this is such a long one. It's over 1,000 pages long. And second of all, I just wanted to take my time with it. And I did take my time with this book, which I'm very happy about. I just wanted to just give it my undivided attention because this book is just bigger and longer than most books are. So it was quite intimidating for me to get into this one. But yeah, one morning I just woke up and the first thing I thought of was The Stand, and I was like, why am I even thinking of it? Maybe I should start reading it today. And so that's how it all started. That's how I got into this book. And yeah, I'm quite proud of myself, even though the contents of this book weren't very hard for me to grasp, but just the length of it was just really intimidating. So but we did it. We did it. I really enjoyed it. The only thing that I didn't like was the very beginning of the book. So for those who don't know what this is about, let me tell you the premise first. Basically, there's this laboratory where something goes wrong and a virus that was artificially created suddenly spreads across the earth, or at least the USA as far as we know. And so the first part of the book is basically about this virus spreading around, killing people. I didn't enjoy that part, to be honest. I've heard a lot of people did. I was waiting for the moment where our main characters would be left alone, and when we got to the point, I got much more invested in the story. This is such a character-driven book. I was expecting it to be more fantasy forward. There were fantasy elements in it, but it's just more of a post-apocalyptic story, and it's more about these people we follow here, their relationships, and how they try to survive, how they try to deal with things that come their way. But speaking of the villains, I loved just how their intentions, the very essence of them, how those things were compared to some random stuff like the weather or the impact they had on people surrounding them. I also liked how Stephen King put in these big paragraphs in the middle of a scene that were dedicated to opening up our characters even more in the middle of a conversation, for example. And so it helped me understand our characters more. There were also so many psychological insights into just so many things, like again, our character's behavior, or when he provides his readers with some real examples so we can compare the experiences our characters are going through with those real examples from, psychology, medicine, technology, politics. Another thing I want to talk about is that sometimes when Stephen King goes overboard with his imagination, things seem too far-fetched maybe, or a little unrealistic. I get it, like this is a fantasy. Some of the things happening in here are supposed to be unrealistic in a way, but still, when we read a fantasy, we want to believe all the things that happen there, right? We want to believe everything we're reading, but I've noticed that sometimes it seems like I just said a bit far-fetched or just so unrealistic that I cannot take it seriously. And instead of pulling me in, it kind of distracts me and takes me out of the story. However, I want to say that in this book in particular, whenever I thought that, this thing that is now happening has just appeared literally out of nowhere, after a while seemed quite real and believable to me, thanks to our characters' reaction to that thing. At first, they would react the same way I did, and that was exactly what made it believable to me, because I was like, okay, so they are taken aback by this randomness too, just like I am. And so yeah, afterwards they would take it more seriously and like, okay, now we gotta deal with this. All these tabs, I mean, not all of them, but most of them really are related to our characters' arcs, which is insane. It's all about our characters' arcs, their paths, their relationships, their interactions. Also, I don't want to spoil things, but I'll just say that if you read the book, you probably know what character I'm now talking about. So there's this one character that was tied into the plot in a way that I really love when Stephen King does it. When he does these mind things. Anything related to mind, how it works, and especially if it's backed up by some real facts. Again, I don't know if they're 100% real and relevant, but if they are, it's just so good and amazing and blows me away every time. Yeah, I also love the climax. I think it was very ironic. I liked how our characters were connected by this mission laid upon them by higher entities. I enjoyed it. I'm very happy that I finally read it. I had a great time with it, and yeah, I can't wait to read my next Stephen King book. So that was the only book I read in January. The next books are the ones I read in February, and the first one I read in February was Anxious People by Frederick Bachman. My first Frederick Bachman book. I just wanted to say and last, but I don't know yet. I don't know, things might change, but I'm not entirely sure they will, because unfortunately I didn't like this book at all. I mean, there were some things that I liked about it, and that's what I want to talk to you about first. First of all, I liked the writing. It was very humorous. It was so funny, but in a good way, and I also found some similarities between Frederick Bachman's writing and Stephen King's writing in the way he likes comparing things. The air passes through the older policeman's throat as roughly as a piece of heavy furniture being dragged across an uneven wooden floor. And there were so many things like that where he would compare someone's breathing, for instance. So let me tell you what the story starts with. We follow our main protagonist who decides to rob a bank one day. And so he goes into the bank, realizes that the bank is cashless, and in panic he runs out of the bank, and then he just runs into the first open building, and he runs into an apartment there while that apartment is being shown by the host to potential client. Then there's this investigation led by the police. And the first thing that really threw me off was the dialogue between the policeman and the witnesses. It felt so cringy to me. All the witnesses were acting almost the same way. They were all being so rude for no reason. Whenever the policeman asked them real questions that actually made sense, for some reason they didn't make any sense to the witnesses, and they would just, I don't know, start avoiding those questions, and not just avoiding, but they were just so rude and harsh toward the policeman, and the policeman didn't even try to defend himself. Like, I know it might sound strange, like why would the policeman defend themselves? Like the witnesses, yeah, they didn't attack the policeman or anything like that, but they were saying such ridiculous things to him, and they were so irritating. It was crazy, and because of that, the dialogue felt very cringy. Also, our characters were very manipulating, but in an entertaining way. So that was another thing that I kind of liked in this book, because people like our characters, they do exist in real life, and we all manipulate each other sometimes, even if we do it subconsciously. And so I found some of the characters to be quite witty in that way, and how they would sometimes intentionally, sometimes I guess unintentionally manipulate each other. And that was just, again, funny, like funny but in a good way to read that. Though I thought the writing was actually repetitive at times. And on top of that, there was just a whole lot information about our characters and their families. And I guess that might have been put into the story to evoke sympathy in me. But instead, I just kept getting bored because the plot wasn't progressing when I was given those pieces of information about their families and stuff. I found it very boring because I didn't really care about those characters. I didn't care about their families. So yeah, unfortunately, I didn't love this book, though I heard that there's going to be a series, like a TV show based on this book. And if it's true, I mean, it says literally like on the cover, Netflix, a Netflix series, so I guess it is true. I do wanna watch the show, maybe. I might like the show better than the book. Alright, the next book I read in February I enjoyed way more than Anxious People, and that was Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. First things first, there's a quote by Stephen King on this one, and that just increased my expectations in an instant. Overall, I heard good things about this author, so yeah, I wanted to try it out. Galaxy Alex Stern is the most unlikely member of Yale's freshman class. A dropout and the sole survivor of a horrific unsolved crime, Alex was hoping for a fresh start, but her free ride comes with a catch. She has been tasked with monitoring Yale's secret societies, notorious haunts of the rich and powerful. Now there's a dead girl on campus, and Alex is the only person willing to look deeper, because the societies are far more sinister and extraordinary than anyone ever imagined. They tamper with forbidden magic, they raise the dead, and sometimes they prey on the living. And we are set in our modern days, which I didn't really enjoy, to be quite honest, because when I first heard about this book, I immediately imagined a completely different setting. Yeah, I just thought it have more of an older feeling to it. I overall liked it. The only thing that I didn't love, I felt like the writing style didn't let me in. Like, it didn't let me into the story, I felt like. I know it's a very weird way to put it, but the beginning was so confusing. I was still engaged, like I wanted to know what it was all about, but it was just so confusing for, I don't know, 80, maybe 100 pages or so. But then things became clear. I was finally in the story. It's all about these societies, cults maybe, and all these like suspicious things that they do. It's also very ghostly, and I loved that part of the book. I loved all the paranormal elements of it. I loved our main characters' interactions with ghosts, and overall just how they were tied into the plot. I really liked it. And by the way, this is a trilogy. The third book comes out this year. I already have the second book on my shelf, so I'm intrigued, because I would say that there is a solid conclusion. However, it has some loose ends that our main character will, I guess, be solving in the second book. So yeah, I'm excited to continue. I enjoyed this one. It was cool. I like reading about paranormal stuff, ghosts, societies, cults, something like that. Something gothic, mysterious. There was also a murder mystery, like investigation and stuff. That takes up a big part of the book, just so you know. But yeah, we were investigating a lot in this one. This book I was so excited to get into. It's Babel by R.F. Kuang. Babel is a historical fantasy set in 1836. The city of dreaming spires. It is the center of all knowledge and progress in the world, and at its heart is Babel, Oxford University's prestigious Royal Institute of Translation, the tower from which all the power of the empire flows. Orphaned in Canton and brought to England by a mysterious guardian, Robin Swift thought Babel a paradise. until it became a prison. But can a student stand against an empire? So again, let's talk about the things I didn't like, then about the things I enjoyed. Before reading this book, I heard so many people talk about how Arif Kwang just teaches you. Like, she teaches you things instead of just telling you them and letting you learn them, if you know what I mean. With Catabasis, I completely disagree, but speaking of Babel, yes, I do agree with that. I found the writing to be way too straightforward. I guess in historical fiction, things don't have to be vague, but I think in this one it was just too straightforward. Like, I wanted to find and realize the meaning, you know, the message behind everything by myself, but I was just told this is bad and this is wrong and this is how it's done, this is how it shouldn't be done. However, I really liked the beginning of the book, and I thought it was way more impactful and stronger emotionally than the middle of the book, and actually the rest of it too. Here we follow a boy from Canton who is orphaned by this mysterious guardian, like I just read in the premise. He's brought to England in order to start preparing for Oxford, and so he starts studying and everything. This guardian tells him, I'll provide you with everything you need, but you have to study all the time. You have to study languages, translation, to enroll in Oxford later. I would say that the story seemed superficial for some reason, even though there was so much history in it, so many historical events mentioned, but it seemed superficial because I felt like I wasn't participating in anything. I also feel like I didn't spend enough time with our main characters to actually feel for them and care. But the ending got to me. It got to me. As this book's mainly about words and translation, I just liked how random words and their origins and some translation facts were inserted in the middle of a scene, and I really like that. It made everything a little bit more impactful, I think. I always like it when there's languages in a book, so this one is mainly about it and how the empire used them to basically empower itself. At times it was quite difficult to understand all the details about it, but I kept, learning things till the end, and I'm happy that I didn't just let it go past my brain. I enjoyed that part of the book very much. The magic system is basically based on translation, so I actually want to tell you about the magic because it's so unique in its own way. So there are silver bars used by mostly rich people because they're quite expensive, and our students, they engrave words onto the bars, basically the same word but in two different languages, and so you engrave them. And the point of this magic system is that no translation is 100% accurate. When you engrave these two words on a silver bar, the bar catches this gap between the meanings of the words. This gap is the magic that the silver bar does. It's quite hard to explain, might be hard to understand. Eventually, as you read more and more about this magic and how it's done, how it's applied to, real things, then it kind of just dawns on you in the end. It was just a bit boring at times, but overall I liked it. I liked all the language aspects. I didn't really care about the characters, unfortunately. Like I said, I was just watching it from a distance, but I wasn't actually there with them. I would still recommend this book if you enjoy historical fantasies, then And the last book I want to talk to you about is Vicious by V. Schwab. I've talked a lot about V. Schwab on this channel, but just in a nutshell, have read basically one book by her, and I DNF'd one, but that was my mistake. Anyway, the book that I actually read, from her, that I finished, I didn't love it. I started enjoying it by the end, I would say, and I really loved the writing. So I wanted to try and read something else from her, and that happened to be Vicious. Vicious is a trilogy, and this book is the first one. It wasn't the best book I read. It wasn't the worst book I've read. I didn't hate this one. I actually enjoyed it, but I wasn't obsessed with it. Not as much as so many people are. Here we follow two academic rivals. So they study science and all of that, and one day they decide to do an experiment, a scientific science experiment on themselves. There are so many attempts at that experiment. Both of them end up gaining these superpowers, and one of them ends up in prison for whatever reason, escapes it, wants to find the other guy, and that other guy wants to kill anyone who possesses these superpowers, even though he himself has them. So that's the premise I want to give you. It might seem that that's a lot, maybe even too much to know before you read the book, but actually it's just all about the way these characters think. The way they think about themselves, the way they think about each other, the way they use other people for their goals. This book is about villains. This trilogy is about villains, and our main characters basically are those bad guys. You dive deep into their personalities and the reasons they use to do all these things they do in this book, at least. There were actually so many just horrible things happening, but the writing was quite simple in the way that it made all those horrible things seem not so horrible, if you know what I mean. And the entire situation just seemed hilarious sometimes, and it all even seemed so absurd. And especially the company that one of our main characters ends up with is just so funny. A lot of times I would just think, how did these people end up together? How did they even meet each other? It was just so absurd in that way, which was quite fun, but it wasn't my favorite, so I'm not dying to continue, but we'll see. Maybe she's just not for me. Maybe this author is just not for me. I don't know, but yeah, I kind of liked it. It was quite fast-paced, by the way, especially the second part of the book. So we'll see if I continue. Well, that being said, those are all the reads I wanted to talk to you about today. So let me know if you read any of those books and what you think about them, or let me just know what you're currently reading and what you're planning to read in the near future, and I will see you in the next video.